Hello and welcome to this month's From the Bench. My name is Chad Johnson and I am the studio director here at the San Francisco Center for the Book. I'm very excited today to be hosting this event with my former professor, Peter Kruty. I did the MFA at the University of the Arts a couple years ago. And Peter and I had the great opportunity to work with Peter. So that was very exciting. So I'm just going to introduce Peter here, and then I'll hand it over to him in his studio in Brooklyn. So Peter Kruty Editions is a fine art letterpress studio run by partners Peter Kruty and Sarah Gatos, and sometimes their teens, Sammy and Petra. Guinea Pigs, Little Dude, and Eggy have not yet ventured into the press room. They all live upstairs in a little commercial building near the waterfront in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. The press room is downstairs, so a bit like a baker's above the bakery. In 1,800 square feet downstairs, we have a digital guillotine, 5 Vandercook presses, including a 219 new style and a large 232P, the second largest Vandercook made, a Washington hand press, and a Heidelberg windmill. At PKE, they do a mix of commercial letterpress, mostly simple, elegant menus and announcements for events on double thick uncoated stocks. Principal among these clients are the newcomer Gathery and the venerable Maharam. The other focus of the studio is artist books and prints. Longtime collaborations include visual artist books published by Susan Gossen and Du Genève handmade paper mill, including artists Eliza Kentridge and Leslie Dill, artist book projects with the brilliant Russian-born Mikhail Magaril, print editions with SVA drawing master Peter Christoph, and prints in multiples with the extraordinary Charles Ledre. Peter will show you a quick sampling of some of these press room undertakings, and he saved a last run on the current project to give you a taste of the Uni 1 in action. So,
of course.
With that, I'm just going to remove my pin and welcome to Peter Kruty.
Hey, thanks, Chad, for that sweet intro. Welcome, everyone. I see some familiar faces. Thank you for joining. What a pleasure. So yeah, I'm going to show you some of the books that I'm going to take a little bit of a risk on this for Zoom because I'm just going to hold them up, but at least they'll feel alive to you, and a book should always feel alive, right? And then I have a project going on the Vandercook, so I thought I would show you some of the tricks that we do over here to get these things to look good. So and then you ask questions. Okay, so let me start by just saying that the studio has been here in this building for almost 20 plus years, 2001, and we're in Sunset Park, Brooklyn on the waterfront. It's really nice to be able to just go from upstairs to downstairs so you can work late, you know, which maybe is a liability actually, because no one should be working at 1 in the morning. But still, there's no commute, there's only stairs. And we were lucky enough that we do have an overhead door, so we managed to haul all this equipment in. I don't know if any of you have, I know that some of you have equipment. I don't know if any of you have tried to move these big presses, but it's, you know, once you buy a press, this is what I told my friend Elias, once you buy a press, you're stuck, you're a letterpress printer for life, because it's that first move of a press locks you in to this lifelong pursuit of moving 2,500 pound objects around. So we do, you know, what Chad said, and is we do a mix of things. We've always done commercial letterpress, and we've always tried to do artist projects. So it's an interesting and tricky mix. The two things are sometimes difficult to do in the same studio. Sometimes the bookwork requires craftsmanship and clean tables, and you have ink everywhere, you have solvents everywhere. But somehow, and recently, we've been trying to do more and more artist work. So I'll show you the book that kind of got us started on Bookworks. This goes back to 1989. It's my friend Bob Peterson. He does these wonderful collage prints. Are you seeing my connection good? Because I just got a message saying it was unstable. Chad, does it look good, the connection?
There's little blurs here and there, but overall it's good.
Okay. So it's a pine box that's been painted. It opens up and inside is the book. This is the way that Bob always does his work. He always buries things inside of other things. And then inside the book are these collages that are scanned. And this book is old enough that it was from metal plates. So now we do everything from polymer. But this book goes back, so we actually had to order the acid etched plates to do the printing. And the whole theme of this book is color painted under letterpress printing, and then letterpress printing of paint over letterpress printing. So it's like a combo. And that kind of hand manipulation has been kind of a theme for the bookwork we've done. This is a book with Leslie Dill that also uses a lot of hand manipulation. All the colors in Bob's book were painted by hand in each edition, in each copy. Same thing here with Leslie's book, The Thrill Came Slowly, an Emily Dickinson poem. This book is printed on tissue, silk tissue. So it's actually just this little wafer thin affair. And so we had to create a binding for it that works and makes sense. So it's like this little framing that it turns out that 4-ply rag mat fits the book's shape perfectly and thickness. And then we stain it with shellac because Leslie shellacks everything. And then printed on the back the colophon. And again, the book is, and this one is sort of hard to show this way, but the book is hand painted with solvent washes and direct applications of shellac on the letterpress components so that when they're run through the press, it squashes the ink and the shellac together, prints it all at once, and you get a big mess. Then you have to clean it up and start again. So you have to clean the shellac with alcohol, and then you have to clean the ink with mineral spirits. So it's an interesting challenge. And then these are editions. So this was like an edition of 40 books. So you have to kind of line them up and do them sort of all the same way.
Peter, were those all photopolymer plates, or was there some type in there?
So this one is, so this has type in it, but it's not type, it's wood type. So it ends up being photopolymer plates. So we took wood type and set it into alphabets and distressed it. The idea is to distress the wood type itself before you make distressed proofs of it. So you put solvent on your wood type and you make a messy proof. And then after that, you make a polymer plate from a scan, and then you print that as cleanly as you can. So it's kind of a two-step process where you're able to edition it pretty consistently because all of the rustic quality was in the original proofing. And this was the Eliza Kentridge book that Chad mentioned in the intro, that from Dudonay. So it's these handmade papers, these huge handmade sheets that are then pulp painted. And then there's collage elements again inside, so that we're printing on abaca, half the sheets, and the other half of the sheets are cotton. So it's like a cotton and an abaca and colored sheets. And the imagery is scanned. Some of it is created letterpress, some of it is created by collage. So what was tricky here is to take her, like this image, you're trying to take her drawing and figure out how you can repurpose it to work in letterpress. So in this case, it's a drawing of her kitchen. Now this is a crayon drawing, so it transfers pretty well to letterpress. We just have to make an ink that's very crayon-like. But this other image that I'll show you is trickier because she had made a more complicated portrait image. And we have to simplify it. So this is kind of one of the themes of working in letterpress as an image. It's one of our strong interests is using letterpress as an image, not just as a way of creating image, not just for text and not just for sort of blocky wood blocks or rustic wood type, but actually to create refined images with the photopolymer plates. The difficulty, though, is that you have to figure out how to simplify. She had about 9 colors on this. There is actually 5 press runs here because there's subtle things that happen in the hairlines. And then the little white dots for the eyes are painted by hand at the end. And then you have to figure out a binding. These soft bindings are really effective, I think, because they have a great hand feel. They invite you. They make you want to hold the book and look at it. I'm a kind of a big believer in the flexible book, the soft binding, because I like the idea that, you retain, it sort of retains activation. The other interesting things we do, like combos with digital photography and text. This is from a recent series we've been doing with the artist Kira Salmon. And so the text is set in, this is a typeface by Paul Shaw, notable calligrapher in New York and type scholar. And he designed this face many years ago. It's old clawed. It's a Garamond that's been intentionally antiqued. And it worked perfectly for these texts. This is someone you might want to look up online and see. It's a nice PBS feature on her work, Kara Salmon. And she went to plantations and found original texts and took photographs, and it's a combination. It has to do with her family history as well. It's super interesting. So we're printing out the photographs in a Canon printer, and then we're setting the text in digital old clawed, and then we're going to polymer, and then we're printing it on the sheet. And here the whole challenge is to try and bring a sort of a second level to what the writing is by deciding which words to emphasize. And so again, in the sort of collaborative spirit, you're working together, but you have kind of the same vision, but you're choosing certain things to emphasize. And so, it makes it really super stimulating. This little guy is a portfolio of images with Peter Kruty. He teaches at SVA here in the city. And these are huge drawings that he's sort of miniaturizing. So these are like life-size drawings. And then we're miniaturizing them and then printing them from the polymer. And again, it's kind of an expression of this sort of simplicity that you can achieve. So here your goal is to get the inking right, not too heavy, not too light. Get the impression right, not too deep, not too shallow. And then just retain the details. So that sometimes that's in the scanning. Sarah does a lot of the scanning work, and that's its own challenge when you're scanning artist drawings, to retain the edges or change the edges. Like we're often having to kind of modify the look of the edges.
Hey, Peter, what was the name of that artist, Sam, who did the Obtain?
So that's Keris, Keris, Salmon, Salmon.
Keris Salmon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sakai Labs is her, she calls her studio. And let me get the big book of Leslie's, because that shows kind of the interesting thing I was saying about edges. Oh, this is the Leslie Big book. This will be absolutely impossible to show this way, but the idea is that you have to figure out again how to transition from the artist's drawings. These are essentially at scale, a little bit reduced. You have to take the drawings and scan them and then figure out what you're doing with the edges. When you scan, you get way too much information. So then you have to figure out how you're selecting your information, what your effects are. And this one was especially challenging that way because she had pages where there were these beautiful wash lines and wash textures. So how do you render a wash texture in halftone letterpress? And I don't know if any of you have been trying it, but I think this is the thing that has scared people away from halftones. They think halftones just turn muddy or they're so hard to control but what's interesting is that the beauty of letterpress image work is really contained in the halftones. It's really the halftone. It's at least 50% of the game. So when you figure out some tricks for halftones, and then you figure out tricks, you have to figure out tricks at both ends. You got to figure out tricks when you're setting up your files and scanning, using a dither or whatever you need to do to create the right kind of dot. Then you have to figure out the trick when you're printing it, which often means just cleaning it with solvent every single time. So you have to treat it like an etching, clean it out each time. But in this case, the page I was showing you, it has even one more level of complexity, which is what do you do when you have a mixture of dense and super fine, right? I mean, this is an age-old problem in letterpress. What happens when you have a flat with small type below it, or anything that involves lots of ink next to something that doesn't want to take very much ink at all? And that's something I want to show you in a moment behind on the press on this thing I'm printing today. But for this, to resolve this problem for Leslie, what we did was we made two plates. One plate had the letters, the areas of halftone around it, and the other plate was just the letters again. So you would print very controlled for the little dots, a lighter printing, and then surprint again the letters over on top of themselves, just the letters. So it retained both the fine halftone and then the strong letters. So this binding also was problematic because we wanted the pages to be able to come apart. And so that's actually, I mean, the one thing a book doesn't, I think Judy Ivory can speak to this. The one thing a book doesn't want to do is come apart. I mean, the one thing you don't want a book to do is come apart, right? So to design a book that comes apart, right, it's kind of like a little bit of a oxymoron. So what we did was we created these interesting tabbed bindings that are, it's a steel rule that the kind you score with, and then it's been covered with the paper of the book and then drilled, and I had to buy these special drill bits to drill through this case hardened steel. And then these are just the regular tabs that they had to be covered with the paper. So here we are like spray painting these little binding tabs and then gluing little pieces of paper onto them that match the paper in the book after they're spray painted white. All of it to kind of try to make it seamless. And so
that's basically just a screw post binding, Peter?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you have to tap or you got the bottom edge, so you got the female and the male there? You didn't have to tap the steel.
Yeah, so it has the bottom and top. And then again, this is an 8-ply rag board. And then the poem was printed on the inside. So it was kind of like following a sort of a format that we had established in her other book.
So I know you want to get on press, Peter. We got about 5 minutes. If you want to do the press demo here.
Yeah, okay. So 5 minutes on the press demo. So I can't even show it to you, but time-wise, but if you look him up online, Charles Ledray, Ledray, Charles Ledray, we're doing these phenomenal little things with him. He miniaturizes everything to 41%, draws it all by hand, takes books and things and draws them again from scratch by hand. All this stuff looks like the originals, but it's all drawn by hand. Then it's all reduced to 41%. Charles Ledre, check out his Whitney show. I promise you, you'll be amazed. All right, what I wanted to show you on the press. Vandercooks really make great, all you need is a wooden tabletop. You know, they make fantastic tables. So if you have one in your studio and you haven't put a wooden board on it, you need to. So this is the little project that we're doing in-house today. It's a poster for the Walter Burley Griffin Society of America. He was the sidekick of Frank Lloyd Wright, just as good in many, many ways, maybe the most important other Prairie School architect. And my brother runs this operation, the Walter Burley Griffin Society of America, and we do the poster for the annual meeting each year. So what's interesting here is, if you're a Vandercook person, you know this, but here we're printing it as a print and turn, so I can hold a longer sheet. And then the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting about this printing is that problem that I had referenced earlier, that it's hard sometimes to figure out what to do with this building wants to catch more ink than this type, but I want to run it together. It's on the same plate, so why not? And so you can do this trick with polymer. Is a trick you can't do with metal. So it's interesting. I want more ink on the image at the top, the house. So I can ink the house type together. So I'll give it like, say, 3 inkings. And 3 inkings is 2 passes and 2 passes back. So if you count them, you know, that's going to be about 12 layers of ink already on this house. Now I can take a rag and wipe the type off that's down below. And that's the beauty of polymer. You can wipe it with a cotton rag. You can't really do it with metal type, because metal type needs that layer of ink on there. And then I can come back and finish 2 more passes. And then here's the sweet little background ready to go with the reverse, and the color that I thought was too pink, but fortunately the orange made it look fine once the orange got down, because colors change when they meet each other. And then in it goes. Registration is pretty tight on this. And then you follow it in until you almost crush your fingers, and then voila, right? Sweet.
Looks great.
Yay, yay. All right, you got to give me 5 minutes for questions.
All right, fair enough. And someone asked, Nina asks, mentioned double thick uncoated stock. What would that be specifically?
Yeah, so most of the watercolor stocks they're pretty soft, you know, like the standard Reeves BFK. You can print letterpress on them just fine, but they're toothy and they're soft, so you have to, you know, give them a lot of ink. But also for like a menu, they're too floppy. So we use a lot of things like Crane's Lettra, which is, you know, a heavier stock, and you can duplex it. We have a little gluing gadget that glues the sheets together, and you can make them double thick that way. Sometimes you can buy them as double thick. Gmund has fantastic papers, GMUND. You should look that up if you don't know them, Gmund. And they have really beautiful white and colored stock that's very thick. So the key is that they're uncoated, so there's no coatings on the stock. The only kind of coatings that are sort of nice is if you're doing digital work. The digital coated papers are beautiful and actually print letterpress beautifully. This is something interesting, like if you get one of those expensive digital coated stocks for photo work, not photo paper, but in archival
Hi, not to
software.
repeat myself. I left a message on your cell.
And those stocks will print, that have the digital coating, will print beautifully in letterpress. But all I meant to say is that, you know, there's a range of those sort of commercial papers. Even Strathmore prints, you know, prints beautifully. Mohawk Superfine, and you can double or triple thick those by gluing them.
Do you have? I've seen a lot of people come through our studio here trying to print on that 600 GSM when it's been cross grain, when it's been glued across the grain, and so it's super snappy. Do you try and do that? Send that through the Vandercook, or do you just do it afterwards?
So, you know, in the Vandercooks, you can print in the bed of the press. You don't have to always run it through the cylinder. Sometimes you can't run it through the cylinder. So you can run things in the bed of the press by simply dropping them on. But if you drop it on type, the type edges will blur just because of a false hit. So then you have to devise, you know, a little method for that. You can put pins in the press bed and punch your paper and set it on. You can put a little bit of foam under it that holds it up. If you're careful, you can put a little foam around it. It's like a little foam window, very, very, very thin foam. Ink it, put the little foam window and drop it on. That's how we print on really thick mat board and things like that, is with foam. The foam holds it up. The press runs over it, junk. You just have to keep your rollers up during the impression. But you can run pretty thick papers through, but they will get a curl in them, and then you can turn them upside down and push them back on the cylinder and try to flex them straight. But they will get a bend. But you'd be surprised. You can certainly run up to like 4-ply rag board through the press. You have to take all the packing off. Sometimes you have to lower your bed. Use a thinner base.
Right. All right. Well, we've gone a little bit over. Does anybody else? We had one other question about the Leslie Dill binding, but you talked about that. Do you do the bindings in house for the most part?
Yes. So we don't always do the bindings. Sometimes we have. We've done some of the cases. We've done some of the bindings when they're simple. That binding. When they get complicated, we send them out. I noticed Judy Ivory was on the call. We have shared work together. Hey, Judy. And you know, when you reach a certain level, then no, you have to go to the master binder. But we do maybe a third to a half of it here in house. Well,
excellent. Well, as we predicted, this went really quickly. But thank you so much for showing us such wonderful books today, Peter. And it's great to see you, and great to see the ice house windows there above you. And I got to get back there. It's been a while, but
yeah, horse stable. That was for the horses.
Right, the horses.
So
yeah. Thanks everyone for coming to join us today for this From the Bench presentation. We're so happy to hear from Peter and see what they're doing over in Brooklyn. And come back next month. Again, it's the same Thursday every month, first Thursday of the month. And next month will be another UArts friend of ours, University Arts friend of ours, Rose Reeder, who's in Philadelphia, doing lots of great stuff. So be sure to come back and visit us for that From the Bench, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks, Peter.
All right, thanks everyone.
Bye.